What is this video about? It's about how it seems that Iran seems to have cracked, about Trump's secret operation, about 100 million barrels of oil that were stolen right from under someone's nose, you'll find out whose, and about 25 billion that will be bought in November. This morning, the President of the United States announced the cancellation of the planned evening strikes on Iran. After much planning, they suddenly called it off. Why? Because the agreement is about to be signed. Well, we've heard this a few times already, but every time you start to think, maybe this time it's for real. And yesterday, an American helicopter was shot down in the Strait of Hormuz, and both countries were exchanging missiles. So, 48 hours from the helicopter being shot down to the time and place of the signing, which will be announced soon. Honestly, nothing like this has ever happened before. What really happened? Who won? I'll tell you the main thing right away. Everything you're seeing now is, well, how should I put it? It's about Iran, but at the same time, it's not just about Iran. This is about November, about the elections, and about the price of gas at your gas station. I'll explain how it's all connected. You know part of it, and I'll explain the rest. And why, once you understand this logic, you'll be able to figure out American politics better than half the experts on CNN. Honestly, it's not that hard. And before we start, a promise. Near the end, I'll share a story about 100 million barrels of oil taken from under the Iranians' noses so smoothly they didn't notice. This isn't a legend. The president announced it. It was on Fox, already confirmed there, and so on and so forth. I'll tell you the name of the person who might have come up with all of this. And his name wasn't in any Russian language reports. I checked. And at the very end, I'll connect all of this to Ukraine and Russia in a way you probably haven't even thought of yet. Well, that's it. Look. And so, how the downed helicopter triggered the escalation of everything we're talking about. And 3 days ago, as soon as we found out it was shot down, I told you right away. Guys, it's going to trigger a very interesting escalation. Let's start with the facts. And I strictly separate fact from theory, as always. So, the fact is, an American helicopter, an Apache helicopter, was shot down near the Hormuz Strait. This was confirmed by the Pentagon, Western agencies, and so on. That's a fact. In response, the American military carried out what they officially called self-defense strikes. There was a tricky thing hidden in that. Again, I'll explain a bit later. They didn't strike cities or residential areas, but specific military targets, Iranian air defense sites, ground control stations, and surveillance radars near the Hormuz Strait. In other words, all the places the Iranians expected would be targeted in retaliation. Basically, we just followed their assumptions. If the Iranians thought, well, they'll probably hit here, that's exactly where we struck. There's also a terribly interesting explanation here. So pay attention to the choice of targets. America didn't retaliate by striking random areas. That is, it struck exactly the infrastructure that allows Iran to shoot down planes and control the air over the strait. The strike was not emotional. It was functional and very well thought out in advance. The goal was to blind for some reason and deafen for some reason. Right there, where the oil passes through. Well, you'll understand why in a minute. The fact is, Iran responded. The Revolutionary Guard then stated that they launched drones and missiles at U.S.-linked targets. That's Bahrain, Kuwait, Jordan. So, Iran was striking U.S.-linked targets in allied countries in the region. Everyone knew perfectly well that this would happen. Now, this is just a version, not a fact. There's an observation that Iran has been trying to restore its air defense systems these days. You know, the very ones that the Americans methodically took out in February. There's a report that an Iranian plane was even seen in the air. This hasn't been officially confirmed, but if it's true, it's an interesting conclusion. Remember that back in April, Iran shot down American planes. That means they shot down an F-5 and an A-10. That means the Iranian air defense wasn't completely destroyed. And now the plane is in the air. What does that tell us? It means that somewhere in fortified hangars, in mountain shelters, even in caves if you like, Iran managed to preserve some combat aircraft, and if necessary, they can get them airborne. The first lesson of the day, Iran is beaten but not destroyed. Remember this phrase. We'll come back to it when we start figuring out who won, who lost, and so on. Now they're about to sign. But is Trump doing the deceiving, or is Iran? Today, the president wrote on Truth Social, literally the following. Well, that's a fact because that's his direct quote. Negotiations with Iran. The negotiations with Iran have reached the highest level of Iranian leadership. He never actually wrote to us about this, though, not once, right? And they have been approved. And that's why Trump, cancels the planned strikes for the evening. And he added, the time and place of the signing will be announced soon. Well, it sounds like he pushed it through. Right, yeah? What's the fact? The fact is the US president said it. Nothing else is a fact. We know that Trump is always playing some kind of games, right? No one else has said this, neither on our side nor on theirs. Now, what exactly is missing? So yes, Trump announced it. There is no agreement. That is, no one has leaked the text of the agreement. There is no confirmation from the Iranian side. Tehran is silent. There are no details. When journalists asked again, what does signing mean? Because who is signing? Who would be signing it? Some seriously ill person or who? Well, the answer was kind of dodged. Yes. There are 3 possible explanations. I'll honestly go through all 3. The first version, everything is true. The Iranian leadership has come around. If the split between the factions has been overcome, then we are on the verge of completion. Of military confrontation, of war, right? The second version, this is Trump's game. The president creates an impression of success before the public, cancels the strikes, declares victory, and brings down the price of oil. By the way, as soon as he wrote this, oil prices immediately went down. The market goes up. Who benefits from this right now? Well, the one who's running in the elections. I won't mention the name in vain. The third version, then, is that this is Iran's game. Tehran pretends to agree, stalling for time so that under the cover of negotiations they can restore its air defenses and save whatever they can. Well, and the Iranians have done this more than once, right? The Ukrainians did this with Russia in their time, both Minsk I and Minsk II, as they've already admitted a long time ago. First, the Germans said this, then the French confirmed it, and now the Ukrainians themselves are saying it. Honestly, well, to put it bluntly, they said, yes, we'll go for it. Yes, we did it. We signed it, but we didn't mean anything by it. They truly didn't mean anything by it. The honest conclusion of an objective observer, today we cannot know which version is true. Anyone who speaks with confidence saying, this is definitely true, or, this is definitely a lie, is deceiving you and doesn't understand anything. Well, that's what I think. We have a statement from one side and silence from the other. Well, that's not enough yet to say, yes, hooray, let's throw our hats in the air. It's a paradox. What's even crazier, America right now almost doesn't care whether this is a real deal or not. Well, let me explain. By the way, while you think that the main news of the day is that they're going to sign it, I'll tell you something that almost no one, says publicly in Russian, and it's something that might make your jaw drop. And if it's your own jaw, if it's a false one, it might even fall out. On the very same day when Trump talks about signing, he also says something completely different, and that's much more serious. Today in particular, Benny Jackson talked about this, and this is confirmed by reputable publications. Benny Jackson, who already has, I think, 6 million subscribers. He just works in tandem with the White House. They invite him there all the time. He attends their lunches. So basically, because of his reach and his position, they chose him as one of the so-called spokespeople who can't speak directly on behalf of the White House, but pretty much express the White House's opinion. So he's no longer an independent journalist, but let's say to his credit, he honestly admits it. I'm on their side, I'm with them, I'm friends with them, I do this, I do that. Everything's fine, yeah. So, the bottom line. The fact is, Trump stated that he plans to physically take control of Iranian oil. Yes, Benny said this, but he said it based on what Trump wrote. My reaction is this. Ooh, wow. To seize Khark Island and other oil infrastructure sites? Nothing like this has ever been said before. More or less verbatim. At some point, this is what Trump writes. At some point in the near future, we will take Khark Island and other oil facilities and establish full control. Barmalek. And he directly compared this to what he did in Venezuela. By the way, I'm very interested, gentlemen, if we land even a small force on Khark. I'll explain in a second for those who don't know how important this is for Iran, okay? This means there will be what we call boots on the ground. That is, boots on the ground. Which will lead to casualties, of course, inevitably, so to speak. Yes, you land our guys and someone will get killed. So what do you think? Especially since this could do a lot of harm in the elections, especially since this could, so to speak, drag us into a serious war. especially since our guys could get killed. Do you think this should be done? Or do you think that it makes no sense at all and to hell with it, let them handle it themselves? And for us, the main thing is, so to speak, to stop Iran from preparing nuclear weapons. And maybe do a couple more things there, and everything else is not our business. Just write it down. I'm curious. And leave your comments. It's a huge question. Well, don't argue with each other. Don't call each other names. We're all thinking, we're all trying to analyze, we're all trying to express our point of view. So don't write things like, "You're an idiot," because if someone wrote that, it's clear that you're the idiot. All right, so let's move on. Yes, you can call me bald, four-eyed, or whatever else people usually write. And I have a porcelain toilet in my mouth. Listen, I'm jealous. If so, write it. All right, what is Khark Island? It's the heart of Iran's oil exports. Pipelines from Iran's largest oil fields converge there before being loaded onto tankers. It's one of the main sources of money for the Iranian government. There are storage facilities there, as far as I know, 30 million, I think. Yes, I think. 35 million barrels. Capturing Khark is like choking Iran economically. Also about the soldiers, Trump said he didn't want boots on the ground. That's boots on the ground, right? But if he wanted to, we could send a small group of soldiers and take over this whole place. We've already seen how small groups of soldiers fly into Venezuela and, so to speak, take everyone out, as they say. None of our people died. We leave in perfect order, having accomplished what we wanted. And as Mr. Trump said, if we do all this, then the Iranians, are finished. Well, he means the regime, not the Iranian people, of course. That's just being fair. That's my standard. This is still a threat and a statement, not a fact, as they say, right? Perhaps this is actually a pressure tactic to scare Tehran exactly at the moment when negotiations about signing are underway. Do you see the connection? With one hand, we sign and the strikes are canceled. With the other hand, if you don't sign, we'll come there, take Khark, just like in Venezuela. These are just classic negotiations in the Trump style, Trump being Trump. Here's what's key for understanding the mechanics. The Venezuelan model isn't necessarily about an airborne assault. In 2020, I think, when the U.S. seized Iranian oil that was going to Venezuela, they didn't even use military force. The Americans just used threats of sanctions, barked a little, or, well, made some noise, yeah. And the ships went to unload in the United States. I think they sent it to Texas. That's it. So you can take oil without a single shot just through fear. Yes, we paid for it, just to be clear. Through fear and through control, that is, without a single shot. Control over what? Over insurance, over logistics there. Remember this. In a couple of minutes, it will all come together into a very clear picture. That's what I promised. So let's move on. Everything will connect. Very soon. Now, the terms of the deal. Do we know or not know who benefits from them, who finds them important? What is known about the terms, according to leaks reported by Axios, through Al Jazeera, through, well, Iranian state TV. This is the version from the leaks, an unsigned document. But the outlines, I would say, are quite consistent because all of them in one form or another repeat roughly the same thing. So the structure is basically an extension of the truce for about 60 days. What happens during these 60 days? So negotiations on nuclear issues are taking place. The Hormuz Strait is opened with duties waived for 60 days. Iran clears the mines that it laid itself. Well, maybe he could throw them back in later, but it would be quite difficult. In exchange, the U.S. lifts the blockade of the ports and provides some sanction relief so that Iran can sell oil. The American principle is relief in exchange for compliance. Do it, get it. Do it, get it. No advances. Iran has always demanded and continues to demand, but there are no advances. Well, he doesn't get any, that's it. Just like Ukraine deceived twice, now as they say, no one will trust anymore. The same goes for Iran. You received advances twice, deceived, and now you won't be getting them anymore. On the nuclear side, Iran agrees to a moratorium on enrichment. Nuclear negotiations are being postponed. That's good for the U.S. The threat of a major war is removed without a shameful troop withdrawal. Oil prices are falling and gasoline is getting cheaper. The compliance first principle remains, so to speak, well, kind of, so to speak. The leverage remains. Right? You acted, we responded. You acted, we responded. Now, what's good for the world? As you know, 1/5 of the world's oil goes through the Hormuz Strait. An open strait means stable energy prices, less risk of global conflicts and world war. That's bad for the U.S. By lifting the blockade and ending the war, Trump loses leverage over the nuclear program. American officials note this. Iran can get the money in the Strait and drag out the nuclear issue indefinitely. I have my doubts about this, but okay, let's accept it, right? Now, what's bad for the world? 60 days is a pause, not peace. It could flare up again, this time with restored air defense. Well, I'll answer it this way. And we'll smash it again because there's nothing new that they didn't have before, and now they'll bring it in and start. They don't have it and can't have it because neither China nor Russia has it. We have it. Israel has it too. That's it. Well, maybe NATO has a little bit of it, but of course they'll manage. Now, what's good for Iran? The suffocating blockade is lifted, oil exports return, their money is unfrozen, and all the nuclear talks are postponed, which is basically what they've been dreaming of, right? Now, what's bad for Iran? They basically sign an acknowledgement of defeat. They sit at the table not as winners, but as losers who are being allowed to survive. And everyone understands that. So who won, you might ask? Who won, right? Look at the big picture. Yes, definitely. In Russia and Ukraine, they'll ask, so who actually won? It seems like Iran won, right? Let's look at the whole picture. Iran is defeated, the infrastructure is destroyed, the air defense systems are knocked out. All right, 90%, yes, the economy is in ruins. In the US, nothing is destroyed at all. In Israel, there are a few damaged civilian buildings, spots where drones hit. Neither the cities nor the army. Let's recall the Russo-Ukrainian war, not the Russo-Japanese one. So let's say at some point Russia says, well, okay, let's end this. And a simple question, so who won? Half of Ukraine is destroyed. And in Russia, well, one or two buildings that drones managed to reach. Do you see the parallel? The country that inflicted incomparably greater damage and received almost nothing in return suddenly suggests making peace. And a naive observer says, is this a draw? A draw. A draw? How is that a draw? No. When one side is lying in ruins and the other only has a scratch, and the side that's in ruins sits down to sign, that's the defeat of the loser disguised as a peace deal. Whoever dictates the terms and comes out unscathed, well, that's the winner. And let's pause here for a second, because the conclusions we're going to draw today aren't just about Iran and America. They apply to any country and any person who enters into a conflict with someone much stronger. Remember this image. I'll come back to it at the end. By the way, I've used it several times already because it's an American expression. The 600-pound gorilla, right? No, pound.
600-фунтовая горилла.
Yes. 300 kilograms. When you're dealing with a gorilla weighing 300 kilograms, you have to think about the consequences and behave accordingly. Not because it's fair, but because they're gorillas. Those are different things. Gorilla and fairness. Two different things. You're on a narrow bridge, and coming toward you is a 300-kilogram gorilla. Give way to it. See, that's the main life lesson of today's episode. It's not about politics. It's about how the world works. It's not the way we would like it to be. And that leads to the main question. Why does America need a deal right now if it's already winning outright? There's only one reason. For November. It's all about November. Here's the idea that unites all of Washington's behavior. The only thing that truly interests the American authorities right now is the elections in November. Everything else? Pfft. Secondary. The chain is ironclad, Iran. Oil price. Gasoline price. Inflation. Voter sentiment. A short and direct chain to election results. One system, one stream of consciousness. What is needed right now? Bring down the price of oil, so that gasoline becomes cheaper, so that the inflation index goes down, so that the voter comes to the gas station. He sighed with relief and went to vote, calmly. That's why the strikes were canceled. We'll sign it, an open straight, tools for a single task. To calm the market, by November, prepare it and calm it down. Is it a real deal or just for show? Who cares? It's important that oil prices went down, for oil prices to go down. And what happened? They went down. And now something the Iranians don't understand? They're thinking about other presidents. They expect that if the Americans leave the strait, we'll be able to do whatever we want again. My dear friends, that's a mistake. Well, you're mistaken. You don't understand that Trump is not an ordinary president, and that after November he'll have years and years of freedom of action, at the very least. Leaving is not surrender, it's a scheduled pause. We have a schedule, it's a pause. After November, Trump will have a year left to return to any unresolved issues. Without pressure from the electorate, he's not running in any elections, and the party will start, so to speak, somewhere about a year before the elections, maybe 10 or 11 months before the elections, to get nervous. So Trump will have exactly a year to solve all the problems. Remember Khark, right? And a small group of soldiers. He can easily send a small group of soldiers there. A small group, I don't know, right? That was a reminder to Tehran that, guys, come on, the conversation isn't over. We just took a pause. We didn't retreat. We paused at a convenient moment, took the main thing, oil. We took it, right under your nose, and a calm market before the elections. But the showdown? Do you want a showdown? All right. You'll get your showdown later. When is later? When pigs fly, and a cherry on top. The money that America is giving to Iran isn't American money, it's frozen Iranian assets. We haven't transferred them yet, right? But if we give money to Iran, it will be their own money that we give back to them, about $25 billion of their money. If America returns it, it will go into Iran's wallet in exchange for an open strait and calm until the elections. In my view, it's simple. 20 to 25 billion of Iranian money is buying a calm November. Such a beautiful exchange. Do you want 25 billion of your own money? All right. Then we need a calm November. In my opinion, that's perfect. A secret operation. 100 million barrels right from under Iran's nose. That's what blew up the internet. Well, here's the promise story. It went by quietly. But it was announced by the president himself. And after that, it was already on Fox. Then it took off. Fact. The president's direct words. Trump reported that he ordered the military to carry out a secret operation to escort oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. As he said, as a result, more than 100 million barrels reached the open market. More than 200 ships passed safely. Well, when Trump counts 100 million, it could actually be 80 or 84 as well. Easily, absolutely. Right? Well, that's just how he rounds numbers. Up to 100 million, then he removes the up to part. But at least there are a lot of ships and a lot of oil. His point was that the strait is controlled by the U.S., not Iran. How was it done? According to his description, the ships were moved at night, without lights, because the Iranian radars had been knocked out by those very same strikes on air defenses from the beginning of our story, and Iran found out about everything after the fact. Afterward, the idea was this: to wait for some kind of aggressive action from Iran, something they could get really angry about and respond to. Then the bombing of air defenses would not be perceived by Iranians as a possible preparation for some kind of operation. They will see it as a response, an expected response to their actions. They waited until Iran shot down the helicopter and were terribly happy about it. By the way, we still don't know. Maybe we shot it down ourselves. They knew. The Iranians were sure that missiles would fly back in response, and the missiles did fly. That's why they just hid and waited for the missiles to stop flying. And at that very moment, on Trump's signal and by agreement with the owners, special American insurance companies, 100 million barrels of oil left the mousetrap. Honesty. So, the figure of 100 million, I still want to say that regardless, no one has confirmed it yet. Ship tracking companies give more modest numbers, which differ from the president's statement. But the fact that the escorted passage was actually taking place is confirmed by analysts from major banks. They note that more oil is passing through the strait than is visible. The transponders on the tankers were turned off. And now the promised name and some very interesting details about this operation. The mechanism isn't purely military. At the core is a public-private partnership in insurance. When the war began, maritime insurance through Hormuz became prohibitively expensive, or it disappeared altogether. Well, companies were afraid to insure. They said, you'll get blown up there and I have to pay for all of it. No. And without insurance, not a single tanker will go. And then Trump ordered the American Development Finance Corporation, DFC, to provide political risk insurance and guarantees for ships in the Gulf. And the Navy escorted the tankers when necessary. That is, the state acted as a so-called reinsurer. Someone provides insurance and the state says, if something happens to you, we will reimburse your expenses. That is, ultimately, so to speak. And private carriers transported the oil, a name that didn't appear in the Russian reports, but on Fox Business with Maria, that is, Bartiromo, Morning with Martha. This topic was discussed by someone named Vince Tizio. He is the president of the insurance company Axis, which insures military, terrorist, or catastrophic risks. He talks about how there was a joint operation between their private insurance company and the U.S. government to remove oil from the Gulf area. I'm not sure who made the first offer, whether it was the private sector or the government. The sources don't say, but my hypothesis makes sense. It was a proposal from private capital. The guys sat down, the money wasn't coming in, and it was unclear how long that would last. So they thought, what can we do about it? And they came up with an idea. And they said, well, we need to have someone who, if we get into trouble, would, as they say, return the money to us. So they went to the government, and the government said, what an interesting idea. Well, let's cook up a whole operation together. We'll distract attention, and you bring it in here, all right? The Trump administration, not being idiots, said, we want that. I assure you the Biden administration, the Bush administration, Bush Jr., the elder Bush was different, by the way, yes. The elder was more, he was a KGB guy. A CIA guy. Yes, he was a CIA guy, so you can't be an idiot. And the Obama administration, they would have said, what are you talking about? What are you saying? No way, that's too high a risk. But these guys said, well, let's see. That's how they snatched 100 million barrels from right under the Iranians' noses. They developed an operation focusing on the right hand, but you actually had to watch the left. They carried it out brilliantly, completely convincing the Iranians that it was a response to Iran's own actions. But we didn't start it, right? It's like, oh, you hit us, you shot down our helicopter, we got angry, now we're going to hit you back. There we start doing this and that, like, oh, they're hitting us, let's hide and look the other way. But we quietly pulled out. Well, let's put it this way. Let's repeat after Trump. 100 million barrels of oil. Let's remove the unverified detail about who came up with the idea and look at the principle. So, I've told you many times about a man named Franz Oppenheimer and the two ways to acquire wealth. The economic way, production, exchange, and the political way, expropriation, taking away. Iran operates purely by the political method. It doesn't create value but sits on the straight, just like bandits in, say, the 12th century AD who sat by the rivers and attacked those passing by if they didn't pay tribute. And in the same way, they try to collect tribute for passage, controlling the bottleneck, pay to enter. There are options, extortion disguised as sovereign rights. And what about the other side? They combined their forces. The power of the state was directed not at taking away, but at protecting free passage. Together with the initiative of private carriers and insurers. Power gave the market the ability to function instead of robbing it. The power that cleared the way for the free market. For whom? The state simply stepped in where private risk became uninsurable and private capital immediately got involved. And the result, the price of oil stayed not at sky high but at normal levels, around or below $100. When power serves to protect exchange, everyone wins except the extortionist. But when power is used for extortion, like in the case of Iran, everyone loses, including the extortionist himself, which is what we see in the ruins of the Iranian economy. That's our philosophy summed up in one episode. Free exchange under protection versus tribute under threat. Golambas and Galambas, Pit Gamer, Ayn Rand are not in textbooks but live in today's news. They absolutely read what they wrote. And finally, and what I promised, to connect with Ukraine and Russia. Look at what's happening around this Iranian story with Europe. When the war was still going on and the outcome was unclear, Europe was being cautious. In March, European leaders directly refused to join the military action in the Strait, demanding clarity of purpose first. Germany stated that it would not participate in military operations. But what about now, when it's clear that Iran is breaking down? Well, it's already clear that Iran is breaking down. The tone has changed. A number of countries, Britain, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, and Japan, have declared their readiness to contribute to ensuring safe passage. The head of the European Union diplomatic mission says directly, "It is in our interest to keep the strait open, and we are discussing what we can do from the European side." As soon as it seems that one country is winning, people immediately line up to join it. For now, it's unclear who will come out on top. Everyone is being cautious, asking for guarantees, but as soon as victory is in the air, everyone wants to be on the winning team and to get their share of the benefits, I would say. This isn't cynicism, it's the nature of coalitions. It's always been this way. In 2019, Britain spent 2 weeks calling for a separate European mission, but then instantly jumped into the American one as soon as it became clear which way the wind was blowing. And now, Russia and Ukraine. Look at what Europe is doing right now. European countries are sharply increasing their drone support for Ukraine. The funding for drones has tripled. Finland, Denmark, Britain, and Norway, building drones together with Ukrainians, are moving the production to their own countries. Norway is allocating over 100 million euros for maritime drones for Ukraine. These are the ones that have shifted the balance in the Black Sea and are hitting the Russian fleet and the Crimean Bridge. Do you see what's happening? Europe is placing its bet. It is investing in whoever, according to its calculations, is most likely to win in the long run. And victory still needs to be defined. Victory. From our point of view, that's hardly a victory when half your country is destroyed, but that's not important. From their point of view, victory means Russian ambition has been stopped, right? They are investing in the Ukrainian technological machine, in these cheap, smart sea and air drones that are changing the very nature of war. This is what Zelensky said as well, and just like in the Gulf, where countries line up behind victorious America, Ukraine now has a line of allies ready to make weapons for it, ready to help with money, ready. Why is this necessary? Well, we've already talked about that. Ladies and gentlemen, they really want Ukraine to join the European Union. They really do. And Russia, which still operates by purely political means, to gather strength, to rise, to hold on by tribute, ends up in the position of someone from whom victory, if it takes too long, turns away. If it's very quick, then they win, loot everything, either run away, capture, kill, or relocate everyone, that's it. But if it drags on, things go very badly for them. It's the same lesson as with Iran. A regime that survives by taking and threatening ends up alone sooner or later. And the free world, no matter how slow and cautious it may be, eventually rallies around the country that creates, not the one that takes away. Now let's do the math. Well, the column there, based on the facts, what does Iran have in its hands, even if the U.S. leaves today and signs a peace agreement? Iran's economic damage is estimated at around $140 to $145 billion. This is public data. Hundreds of billions in destruction, hundreds of billions in destruction, about 2,000 dead, tens of thousands wounded. Military losses are huge. The fleet, according to the American Secretary of Defense, now Secretary of War, is at the bottom of the sea. More than 50 Iranian ships have been damaged or destroyed. The Air Force, according to the same statements, has been wiped out. Well, maybe there's some left in caves somewhere, but overall they've been wiped out, yes. The air defense has been destroyed. We control the skies. Well, let's put it this way. Out of about 480 launchers, only around 100 are still operational. That's about 20%. The missile arsenal has shrunk. There used to be 2,500. It's down to about 1,000 or 1,200, so 50 or 60% are gone. There's no confirmation of any on U.S. territory at all. Zero. All of America's losses are just money spent on ammunition and repairing bases in the region. But that's not a destroyed country. The U.S. is just paying the bill for a war fought on foreign soil, and now mandatory honesty. That's my standard. And here the experts really disagree. This is important. Don't miss it. One school of thought is the Pentagon's official position. Iran's capabilities have been professionally destroyed. Recovery will take years. It has no defense industry, nothing to make up for the losses. The other school of thought is based on intelligence data, sources cited by CNN, Wall Street, NBC, They really like to quote anything that's bad for Trump, allegedly, but they make things up themselves and then quote them, and they say something different. A significant part of the launchers, they say, survived. And what does a significant part mean? Well, that's what they say. About 40% survived, because they were hidden deep underground in tunnels and caves that Iran had been building for decades specifically for this scenario. Thousands of drones survived, I don't know from where. And here's the key point, Iran has already resumed drone production during the ceasefire. Some of these sources believe that Iran will recover in a matter of months. Can you imagine that? Have you even seen the pictures? You can't clear away all that rubble in just a few months. Rubble. Yes, they said it would take 3 years just to clear Gaza, from 2.5 to 3 years. This is a perfect illustration of my rule. What's fact and what's speculation? Fact, Iran suffered colossal damage. But as for how far it set them back, that's a debatable assessment, and honestly, experts can't agree on it. And notice, this is exactly what I was talking about at the beginning. A plane in a cave, launchers underground. Iran is beaten but not destroyed. Both things are true at the same time. They've smashed it, but it's not destroyed. Yes. But here's the key takeaway. For our lesson, it doesn't matter who's right in the argument about timing. It doesn't matter. What matters is the proportion. One side lies in ruins with losses of hundreds of billions, while the other hasn't suffered a scratch on its own land. Want a parallel? Ukraine and Russia? Here you go. The war ends, the Russians just leave. So what? Ukraine is a devastated country. Hundreds of thousands, by some estimates up to 1 million killed on both sides. Millions of refugees, cities in ruins. And Russia? Nothing. A few buildings, a few drones got through here and there. So who won? And here I'll say something that people don't like to say out loud, but I have to be honest. The world is not a place where everything is fair. Not at all. This isn't that kind of planet. You ended up in the wrong place. The world is a place where power rules, and intelligence too. Thank God. It's not just about brute strength. There are some who are very strong, but also very stupid. Some people are weak, but very smart. Honestly, it's better to be smart and weak than strong and stupid, because intelligence makes up for weakness, while stupidity wastes strength. But when you have both intelligence and strength at the same time, that's when you're the one who makes everyone else dance to your tune. And they dance to your tune. Those who don't understand this simple rule, that you can't mindlessly mess with someone incomparably stronger, that you have to act smarter, end up getting exactly what Iran got today, and unfortunately what Ukraine got as well. I'm not comparing their starting positions. Don't tell me it's not the same. I know it's not the same. But both of them got their faces smashed in. I'm talking about one thing. When you act foolishly against strength, you get what you get. This isn't morality, it's the law of nature. Well, naturally. If you run really fast and hit your face against a tree, well, nothing will happen to the tree, but your face will be smashed. One question, are you acting smart or are you acting foolish? Whether it's fair or not, nature doesn't ask. Iran acted foolishly. It sat astride the world's choke point and exacted tribute, thinking nothing would happen to it. And before that, he was shouting every day that he was about to make nuclear weapons and would, shoot at Israel and America. So Israel and America got together. They said, we don't really like this, and they struck Iran, and hundreds of billions in destruction. And the fleet is at the bottom. That's the whole calculation. And you know who loses the most in such a world? Those who were told that everything would be fine. Dad and mom. Teacher. The authorities promised, be patient, keep your head down, everything will work itself out, the world is fair. Nonsense. Our Soviet generation knows this song very well. And here's the result. Those who believed in that promise ended up losing the most because they were lied to. They were lied to by the very people you expect to be the most honest and whom you trust. That's actually the most bitter trap of all. It's not the enemy who disarms you, but the one who says, don't worry, I'll take care of you, everything will be fine, don't stress. The world is fair. Iran fed its citizens exactly this fairy tale, about greatness, about justice, but it led them to ruin. And remember this, don't expect the world to be fair to you for some unknown reason. It will be fair, just because someone promised you it would be. Yes, your mom and dad promised you, your aunt did too, and your teacher in kindergarten and in daycare as well. Nanny Musia said that. Everything will be fine, don't cry. We have to look at reality. After all, we've grown up. We'll rise above the reports and stop acting like kids. That's it. What are we observing? Regimes that have lived for decades by threats, by grabbing people by the throat, by blackmail, eventually reach their limit. It's not due to others' aggression, but their own model. Tehran, Moscow, and freedom of passage, protected trade, private initiative, technology born from free people. These things work. And they attract allies who wouldn't care otherwise, but they want to use this technology, this freedom, and this opportunity. They want to be with the winners. And most importantly, what is all this for, guys? It seems like we're close to lowering inflation, reducing gas prices at your gas station, bringing people peace of mind, confidence, and winning the votes of independent voters. Well, actually, the ones who decide everything in our elections. And what if that happens? Well, I mean, gas will get cheaper, inflation will go down, inflation will drop in November, Republicans will be elected, then the US, Trump, and the world will have won this war 100%. Not just in words, but in fact. No matter what anyone tells you afterward, they won. Because the goal wasn't to wipe Iran off the map. The goal was, you see, not to let them get a nuclear bomb, which could be used for blackmail or actually used, yes, by a terrorist. Low energy prices, political results at home, that's what interests us right now. To stop nuclear development in Iran, not to let them produce something that could kill a lot of people nearby, and low energy prices, political results at home, period. There you go. And all three are being achieved. Especially since the nice part is that Iran itself pays for it with its own $25 billion, and that's how a real victory comes. With a simple action, with a simple answer. Here. My answer to promises that can't be trusted. Yes, the world never promised to be fair. Yes, even those close to you can sincerely be mistaken when they tell you everything will be all right. But there is something that can't be taken away from you, and no one can deceive you about it. If you take it into your own hands and not leave it to the kindergarten teacher, it is your own ability to discern production from confiscation, protection from robbery, fact from a version of events, and strength from bluff. Anyone who can do this on his own no longer depends on other people's promises or opinions, on the authorities, on television, or on people who keep saying, "Trust me, trust me, trust me." He relies on his own mind and his own strength. Both strength and mind. Such a person can no longer be brought to his knees or deceived, not by a headline, nor by a sweet smile, not even by a lullaby. This, ladies and gentlemen, is freedom. This is individual freedom. And that's why we're here learning together, so that none of us ends up among those who were promised everything would work out, and then it didn't. Don't count on justice. You need to act smart. You need to understand when you're being fooled. And you need to make choices based on everything I've told you. That's all. Goodbye.